Well, hey everyone, happy Thursday. Welcome to So What, the Marketing Analytics and Insights live show. I am Katie, joined by John. Hey, John.
Hello.
Last week it was me and Chris. This week it's me and John. Chris is on his way back from somewhere.
A
Um,
bad taco. That was where he's coming back from. He had a
he's
bad
coming
taco.
back from a bad taco. Uh, no, Chris was on the road speaking at an engagement. So we are now in that time of year where you're going to have the rotating host depending on who's around the office this week. This week, John and I are talking about leveraging your ICP, your ideal customer profile, for data storytelling. Well, we're going to cover which data points your ICP can help with, the tactics to make the most compelling stories, and how to check your story for clarity and effectiveness, both in your copy and visuals. Now, data storytelling is one of those things that we think is easy, but it's actually really, really challenging because we're like, oh, the data tells the story. But that's not really true because the data a lot of times is just a lot of numbers and you have to pull out the story. But you also need to figure out from your client or whoever you're working with what story they need to be told. And so, John, you and I very likely would want different stories from the same data because of our roles, because of our responsibilities. So where would you like to start today? I always ask Chris, but I'm going to ask you today. John, where would you like to start?
Where do we want to start? Well, there's a bunch of stuff. It's funny. When you came up with this topic, we went down a list of like, okay, what can we talk about? And you said storytelling and fitting into the data. And I was like, oh, this is perfect because I know the framework for this. I'd worked years ago with Ron Plouffe and he has his story how framework. And so the big thing with this is that everybody has these story frameworks. Like when you go do the research on advisors who do this stuff, everybody has their own framework. But the thing that Ron had done is that he came up with 60 elements. He, as an engineer, broke it down into everything it can be. And so his breakdown is completely comprehensive. So we have a list of everything you need to do. And I was like, this is going to be fantastic because you can outline all the stuff that's going on with the ICP. And then we can layer that into these story how points, and it will put together, a bulletproof story that can't miss basically once you've covered all the key points. But I think a good place to start is with ICP as far as, bringing people up to speed with that and talk about the kind of data that you pull when you're getting that together as you prep to get the story. Before you start working on the bones of the story, you've got to get your, all your research and everything in order. So yeah, if you want to dive into that, I think that's where we need to kick it off.
Absolutely. And for those of you who are curious, we have recorded quite a few live streams, including one about building your ICP, your ideal customer profile, using generative AI. You can find that at trustinsights.ai/YouTube. Go to our So What playlist, and you will find all of those goodies there. And so, what we've been doing with our methodology for an ICP is we've been using minimal data sets because here's the thing. We know that the data collection is the thing that holds up a lot of people from moving things forward. And so if the idea that I had was if you could find the minimal amount of easy to access data, then you could build an ideal customer profile, which is basically a proxy for your actual customers. Because doing that kind of market research, the focus groups, that's also a lot of overhead and a lot of resources. And so, how could we make something really efficient, really detailed, really on target that didn't take a lot of time and resources? And so, what we've done is we've built basically the methodology for creating an ideal customer profile that covers your firmographics, your demographics, your psychographics, your pain points, how people make decisions. And it's, from your standpoint, from you, the end user, what we ask of you is very few things. We want to know who your competitors are. We want to know who you are. We're basically just asking for some URLs and maybe a snapshot of your website analytics if available. So it's very low. It's a very low bandwidth type of activity. So from there, what we can do is we can then use the ICP in this instance as a proxy stand-in for our clients. So let me actually bring up, I'm going to play the role of Chris today, and I'm going to show you my computer. Now, keep in mind, Chris is more on the advanced side, so he likes to use Gemini Developer. I'm going to be using just regular old Google Gemini because I also feel like it's important to represent the majority of how marketers are using these tools. And so you're going to have some that fall into the Chris Penn camp, and you're going to have some that fall into the Katie and John camp. So the first thing we want to do is sort of set the stage. And so using things like the Trust Insights pair framework, which you can get from our website, trustinsights.ai/pair. You can start to prime the model. That's the whole purpose of pair. So what I've written in so far is today we are working on data storytelling for our client. We'll have an ICP to stand in for the client and a lot of data points for review. Before we get started, what are the best practices of data storytelling? And the reason we do this is so we can start to prime the model so it's given focused direction. So we'll do that and let that run. And so it says, absolutely, let's review some of the best practices before your ICP session. So understanding your audience, what do they care about? What do they need to know? Starting with compelling hook, having a clear beginning, middle, and end, choose the right visuals. So this all makes sense. And the nice thing is that these first few pieces are covered by the ICP. And so this gives you a really good foundation for being able to, use your ICP as a proxy for your client. Or let's say you're doing a new business pitch and you want to be able to say, these are the things that we can do. You have to be able to tell a compelling story. Your ICP can stand in for whoever it is you're pitching to. So the next thing we want to do is say, this is great. What are some things that marketers get wrong about data storytelling? And it's going to tell us based on the information. So you have data dumping, ignoring the human element, lack of a clear narrative. I think that's probably the most important thing. Ineffective visualizations, failure to tell the audience, no call to action, and neglecting the why. And you know what, John? We have a handy dandy framework that can answer all of those questions. Do you know what it is?
No, which one?
Oh, it's the 5P framework.
There we are.
Who knew? As a refresher, the 5P framework is a very straightforward decision-making / requirements gathering framework. Purpose, what are you doing? People, who's involved? Process, how are you doing it? Platform, what tools do you need? And performance, did you do the thing? So far, we've started priming the model, John. So we should probably pause here and put together, at least at a high level, some 5Ps or a why, so that when we start to give the instructions to the large language model, it can say, oh, this is what I want to do.
All right.
So what's interesting is that it's like, okay, we could just start coming up and guessing a bunch of stuff. But what we're actually going to do is this is where we're going to introduce the ideal customer profile. Because as I mentioned, the ideal customer profile is a stand-in proxy for your actual clients. And what we're going to be able to do is pull out the why. And I'll show you what that looks like. So first, let me upload the file. So, we've already gone through the process of creating the ideal customer profile. Here is the ICP for your review. Let me know when you've read the document. Okay. So what we've done so far is we've primed the model. We've said, we're going to do storytelling. We're going to use the ICP as a stand-in for a client. What are the best practices? What are the things you don't recommend we do? And now here's the ICP. So we're saying, great. All of that being considered, going to focus in on the pain points of this ICP. This will become the purpose, the why, and narrative of our data storytelling. So the reason I want to focus in on the pain points is because what we want to do with the data is solve those problems. That's why people are coming to us. But we have to know what those pain points are in turn before we can sort of put the narrative together, because a lot of times, so John, you've been in business a long time. You've worked with leadership, you've worked with other stakeholders, and how many times have you gone to someone and said, "Well, tell me exactly what it is that you want me to do and I'll do it." And they go, you know what? Just figure it out," because they don't really know, but they know what they don't want.
Yeah, that's like the greatest challenge, right? Is that they know something's wrong, but they don't have an idea of how to get to where they want to be. Yeah, that is the worst challenge that you can face, because that's the classic "bring me a rock," right? They're just like, "Oh, go find something, get out there." So yeah, if you can use something like this to give you a better map of what needs to get done or where to go, you get yourself way ahead of the competition, and you just get yourself out of a world of pain.
Yeah, and I think that, we know that people struggle. That a lot of times they don't know what the problem is. They just know there's a problem. So giving them this starting point and crafting a narrative around the known pain points, like, you can make some assumptions. It usually has something to do with, revenue. It usually has something to do with resources. It usually has something to do with customer satisfaction. If you don't have an ICP to pull from, those are usually good places to start. Take a look at the business goals. If the business goal is to increase revenue, okay, great. Then that's the narrative. What are we doing to reach those goals? So that's another way to look at, if you don't have this kind of information handy, to go ahead and do this kind of exercise. So what we have so far is the pain points pulled out from our ICP as a proxy for our customers is difficulty in aggregating and utilizing large data sets from multiple channels and platforms, inability to measure true impact of marketing campaigns across different channels, fragmented customer experience due to lack of integration between customer data and marketing technology, difficulty in aligning marketing initiatives with broader business goals. Do those sound like solid pain points? Do we want to dig deeper?
That's the classic, marketing challenges. Yeah, you're doing the campaigns and you can't prove what's working. You're not aligned with the sales team. All that stuff is, yeah, right on the bullseye.
Um, all right. So it says, if you'd like, we can brainstorm specific data stories or examples that you could use to highlight these pain points. Just let me know. I'm going to skip that step. And basically, what I'm going to do is say, this is a great summary. Our next step is to review the available data. I am now going to upload the data that the client has provided that they need some guidance on. All right. You can tell that I'm not used to typing and talking and presenting all at the same time. It is definitely a skill. So let's see. I want to upload images. There we go. So I want this and this. Looks like I'm going to have to do them one at a time. I was not aware of that. I thought I could do them. All right. So only a single image file. Okay, great. Quite a few data points to upload. Don't start analyzing until I let you know I'm ready. And so the reason why, and now again, sort of this is why Chris uses developer, because he can upload multiple things at a time. I'm using Gemini that only takes one file at a time. So the instruction that I gave the large language model was, I have quite a few data points to upload. Don't start analyzing until I let you know that I'm ready. If you don't specify that and you have to upload things one at a time, it's going to start churning and just keep going until you tell it to stop. And so it's easier to tell it to stop before it even gets started. So John, do you want to talk a little bit about some of the storytelling techniques that we're going to be digging into as I painfully upload these one by one?
Finish the load. Yeah, sure. We can talk about that. So as I had mentioned there's, 60 points that are covered that, if you're crafting a full-on story, you want to hit all of those points. But as a getting started point, there's really just 8 main categories that you need to hit and get going. And so as we go through those cards, the first one is the audience. And to actually work with this, I've got the deck here so I can actually throw as we roll down. But the first one is audience, right? The most important thing is exactly on the mark with ICP of who needs this message, what do they need to know today, what do they need to know tomorrow, what are their biases, what are their strengths, and what are their limitations. And with these questions, you basically create the person that you're going to convince with the story. The idea is that as a business writing a story, you're doing this to convince somebody to end up somewhere else, to take a journey and get to another point. So this one is solid as far as ICP, right? We know who needs the message. We're able to dig in and get a profile of who they are, what they're doing, what their job is. And then it is really interesting to get into that. What do they need? What do they know today and what do they need to know tomorrow? So, and that's really the pain points come to light right there, right? You've got kind of the situation of what they see for today, where they're at, and you want to get to where they're going and help them get in a better position for tomorrow. For biases, that one is that's a challenge, and this I'd be interested as we run ICP more to kind of find out more about the biases of the audience, because that one's a kind of a black box, but it definitely flavors the way you create your story. You have to work around their biases or play into them as you go. What are their strengths? That's a basic profile, right? We kind of know what they can do or can't do. And then what are their limitations? That's right up there with biases. When you get to the core of where their limitations are, you're defining where the pain points are and, the places they can't go. And that's usually a great place for you to jump in and, play the hero and get them to where you want to be. So at least, with audience, we're strong. We've got that one pretty much covered. So we're good. And then the second, as far as roles, is the protagonist, right? We want to find out who this person is. You really want to, and every storytelling framework gets into this, right? You want to get in there and outline who the hero is, where they're going. The biggest mistake with this one, and Ron dives into this heavy, but the biggest mistake people make here is that as business people writing stories, they come up with the idea that their product is the hero. And that is not the case. That's completely wrong. In fact, he basically says, look, if you said that, you need to go back to the drawing board and do your work again. Because in most situations, when you come up with a hero story, the product is usually a tool. A good example is always, in today's Marvel superhero world, the hero is Thor. Your product is the hammer. The hero is there and is the customer and is the one having the adventure, but your product is what unlocks new doors for them or gives them powers that they don't have or, gets them somewhere. So, again, this one is a dead match with ICP. We get an accurate view of who these people are and what tools they need, because that's where your product will jump in. As we jump down next, so the second part of the story as you're crafting it is the events. What is actually happening in the story? What, where are you trying to go to? And the first one event is initial impulse, right? There has to be something that kicks your story off as far as, okay, the protagonist is doing something and life is going okay or average or whatever, but now something happens that upsets the status quo. So what is that and where do we go? That is a dead match for what we were talking about as far as pain points, right? You've got basically the protagonist hits these pain points and now either has to come up with an answer or do something to save their job because it's, causing trouble with where they're trying to go or making them unable to prove where they want to go. And so, yeah, we've got that initial spark as far as the pain points. So yeah, that's basically 3 for 3 so far. I see have you reached the point where you want to get as far as getting the pain points on ICP aligned?
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that overview, John. I mean, I think that's incredibly helpful. The thing that really sticks out to me is that we make the assumption that our product is the hero. And, that's where I think a lot of us get into trouble. And this is why I think a tool like the ICP is so great is it takes us out of the conversation and really refocuses it back on the needs of the customer. It's not what we want them to have, it's what they actually need. And so what I've done is I've uploaded a variety of, because we're using the Trust Insights ICP, I've uploaded a variety of our data sources. So it's screenshots from our marketing automation system and screenshots from our Google Analytics system to give a sense of what we're doing from a marketing standpoint, since the pain points were around all of the different marketing campaigns, showing ROI, getting alignment between the different systems. And so I said, so as I went through, I said, I started with saying, I have a bunch of data points. Please don't start analyzing until I let you know that I'm ready. So as I went through, I'm like, here's the next one. I have a few more. Here's the next one. I have a few more. And then I was like, okay, here's the next one. I have 3 more. Here's the next one, 2 more. Okay, this is the last one. Now let's go ahead. And so one of the reasons I kind of like the one by one is that it gives me that instantaneous feedback that yes, the system can read the data. And so as I was going through, and I know this is a little harder to see, it was saying, this is what I see. These are the things. And so that was a good indicator for me, like, okay, this is good data to be giving the system. So I think what we want to do now, John, is us, so we say, okay, great. Now we have a series of questions to ask that will help us start to put the data story together with the goal of addressing as many pain points as possible and provide solutions based on the existing data. Let me know when you're ready. And so what I think, this is where, John, so you mentioned that you have, you've worked with Ron Plouffe, you really like his structure. And so now I know you have, I don't know if you were showing this while I was doing this, but you have the playing cards with all the different questions on them.
Yeah, we can jump into those. Now, one of the other critical points is ending, right? You have to have the ending of the story mapped out from the very beginning. You don't just kind of start hacking away and see where it goes. The idea is you want to go somewhere specific, and then you can actually test different routes to that finish line to see what, where you come up with the best story. But yeah, I think, a good question point to start with this is that ending in mind for us. So something as far as saying, okay, what is the best way for us to convince the ICP that we can resolve these pain points?
Right. Let's see what happens. Because I feel like now we've given the model all of the data, we've primed it, it knows that we're doing data storytelling. So now this is where you can really start iterating and interacting with the model and asking these questions. And so what it's saying is the best way to convince the ICP that Trust Insights can resolve pain points is to present a compelling narrative that combines the following elements: empathy and understanding, data-driven proof points, thought leadership and expertise, tailored solutions, clear value proposition, collaborative approach, call to action. Is that the kind of answer that you were looking for, John?
Yeah, it's interesting that it's given us a list of which points to go down as we hit. And it's funny, it's really struck me that the first one was actually empathy. In framing the story, it's getting our message, acknowledging their specific challenges, and that we genuinely understand the struggles, everything across the board. So that's interesting to me as far as, setting it up and beginning at that point. And then, yeah, as far as the finish line, I think what tailored solutions is at number 4. How far down does it go? Is there anything else that's even?
It goes down to 7. So call to action, collaborative approach, clear value proposition, tailored solutions. They're all fairly, they all relate to each other. But you're absolutely right. I think that I like that it suggests empathy and understanding first, because I know I've been on the receiving end of someone saying, "Here's all the things you screwed up, and here's how you need to fix them." And while you might be fully aware that these things are broken or not working as well, hearing it does not make you feel great about it. And so when someone's presenting it to you in that way, you're like, well, now you're just insulting me and I don't want to work with you. Versus someone who's like, I noticed. And when that happened to me and sort of sharing those relatable stories, sort of, it helps you make those human connections a little bit deeper so that you can then have that, all right, well, so here's what I'm seeing. It's all in the delivery. The data is the data. And this is why we're talking about data storytelling, because you can hand someone a pile of data and it could say, here's all of the things you need to do to turn your business around. But if it's positioned in such a way that someone, it doesn't resonate, or it makes them feel bad because, they already know that things are screwed up, they're not going to pay attention. So you really need to focus on the needs of that particular customer and tell them the story that they need to hear.
Yeah, and I think the key to that is the tailored solutions, right? I mean, because that is the ending point for working with Trust Insights. So that gives us the place to start with, as far as, okay, so most of our customers go with this consultative approach where we manage some of the analytics for them, we take care of some of the integrations and build out this system so that the endpoint is they have somebody who's got their back, is making sure those analytics systems are working. They've got the monthly or quarterly reports that they need, and they have us on call for anytime anything lights on fire, right? Like those are the big 3 points of the engagement. And that's great. So then starting from there is the endpoint. When we go back up to the empathy and understanding, we hit all those points as far as like, hey, do you get crucified every quarter when the board comes around? Or, hey, are you not able to get the budget you need for marketing programs because you're unable to prove, what the existing programs are doing and what kind of success you've had? So yeah, the story, the bones of the story are definitely all filled out now, in that we've got where you want to end to go with that tailored solution. And we can start off with, the empathy of painting that story of, okay, so here's the pain points that ultimately lead to that. So that, that's great. It's a good way to make sure that it is all in alignment. And now you can kind of figure out, okay, how deep can we go with that story? How crazy can it get?
All right. So what's the next question based on the framework that you're using that we want to go into?
Yeah, so now we start to get into the influence section. So Jeopardy is one of the cards, right? Every good story has the hero kind of come into some kind of crisis or problem. So the biggest thing is, what is the biggest risk for our ICP in trying to get to this solution and trying to get to the clear value proposition?
So what I'm writing, and let me know if this is incorrect or not. I said, what is the biggest risk for our ICP when trying to get to their solution? Is there a clear value proposition?
Yeah, let's throw that. I mean, because really, it's just like, what is the biggest risk? That's all that really matters. So we'll see what it comes back with.
Okay. So it says that the biggest risk for the ICP when trying to get to their solutions lies in potential for wasted resources and missed opportunities due to the complexity and fragmentation of their data landscape. So the challenges they face, such as difficulty in aggregating and utilizing large data sets, inability to measure marketing ROI accurately, and fragmented customer experiences, can lead to ineffective marketing campaigns, suboptimal customer experiences, missed growth opportunities, and operational inefficiencies. And so, these are all the things that basically, as you're telling the story, you can say, you can sort of lean into that. If you don't, fix these things, this is what's going to happen. And really start to paint that picture of, this is why you need to be paying attention. And when people start to hear like the doom and gloom, or really when you break it down into, you're going to waste a lot of money, you're going to waste people's times, then you have their attention, especially if you start with the money piece. Um, so then it goes into the clear value proposition for Trust Insights lies in its ability to mitigate these risks and empower clients to overcome their data challenges. Trust Insights enables clients to unlock actionable insights from their data, measure the true impact of marketing campaigns, deliver personalized customer experience at scale, and align marketing initiatives with broader business goals. Okay. So that all makes sense to me. So we know what the risks are. So do we want to dig in further to that? What's the next step?
Yeah, I think we're good with that. I mean, it's just good. The thing that really hit me with that is, the complexity and fragmentation of the data landscape. Like that's what we run into all the time. It's you've got, these 5 different systems and the data is not coming across. And yeah, when you get down to it, you pretty much have to make a decision. You're like, okay, we're either going to hire somebody full time whose whole job is going to be able to, getting this data in line and order, or you go find somebody who has already done it 50 times and it's going to take them 1/10 of the time because they've climbed the learning curve. So yeah, that these are great story bones here too. This is, we are laying out the jeopardy of somebody who's, not able to figure out what's going on. And then we have, them putting their hero product to work to get them where they want to go and actually get out of jeopardy. So that one's solid. The next one after that is emotional choice. Every protagonist kind of has a bunch of emotions that affect them as they go through. They feel like they're going to fail, or they're at risk of getting killed, or coming up short, or whatever. So the question with this one would be, what emotions is the ICP going to have to deal with as dealing with these problems and these pain points? And I love this one too, because this goes right back to that first one of empathy, right? By getting this list here, this allows us to address all those empathy points at the same time.
So what I captured, and to give the large language model a little bit more direction, I said, great, we want to really focus in on these risks and how solving the problems can make the ICP the hero. What emotions will the ICP experience while going through these pain points? So let's see what happens. The ICP, primarily composed of CMOs, VPs of marketing, and data-focused leaders, this is incredibly helpful, will likely experience a range of negative emotions as they grapple with the pain points outlined: frustration and overwhelm, anxiety and uncertainty, dissatisfaction and concern, pressure and stress.
Isn't
that
that
track?
Yeah. We have some customers that have all of those in a single customer.
They're just multifaceted human beings.
It's the good news is that the pain points are all real. That's for sure. But yeah, I don't know. That hits me pretty hard. I was actually not expecting such an ugly list, and yet.
But your very visceral reaction to this tells me that we're on track, because you're like, oh my God, you want to get that emotional reaction because that's what gets people to pay attention, and so now you're like, okay, great, where is this going to go? And that's exactly what we want to do with good storytelling, is really draw people in and be like, oh my God, yeah, I see myself in this. And so, it concludes by saying, by addressing these pain points and showcasing how Trust Insights can alleviate these negative emotions, you can position your company as a trusted partner who empowers marketers to become heroes within their own organization. This is an important point, because the large language model, based on the minimal instruction that I've given, picked up on exactly what it is that we do for our customers. We are not the heroes of the story. They are the heroes of their own story. We're just there to support them and, give them all of the tools and, techniques that they need to go from point A to point B. So I'm hooked. Now I need to know what's going to happen. Tell me more of the story.
Yeah, it's interesting too, isn't it? Because each of those kind of have different buttons to push, right? Like pressure and stress. Well, that's usually pressure from above or financial. The anxiety or uncertainty, that's, unable to get to results and you're waiting on results to come in that you have no control over. And then frustrated and overwhelmed, that's usually technical complexity that's you're not able to get to the bottom of. So every one of those have a different set of levers that you can work as far as talking about this customer's adventure, which can get crazy. The last two are pretty much in the same boat. The first is purpose, and why are we telling this story? And the big thing with that is it's the combination of both our need and the audience's action. So, it's our need. Now we know we're talking about, you know, clearly outlined services, but the audience action is we stack this up so that is the answer to where they're going. So that's fine. And then I had to laugh because I had not dug into this framework in like 3 or 4 years. And when I got to the last card is meaning. It's what is the where does it go? And he asks a very simple question, which, as you put it right on there, is so what?
Yeah.
Which fits right into today's show. So that closes it up nicely. But yeah, as far as obviously the purpose is obvious, right? We're using this to get somebody where we want to go. But as far as meaning and the so what, where else do you land with that? What else are you thinking about? Oh yeah, we can throw it to the model too.
I'm going to throw it to the model. That's the whole point, because the model theoretically now has all of the same information that we do. It has the data. It knows the customer. It knows the pain points. It knows what they're trying to do. It knows the emotions. So now we actually have to turn it into a story. So it says, great. Keeping in mind everything we've discussed so far, what do we do with all of this information? What is the so what of this narrative? What data story can we tell our ICP that addresses their pain points, acknowledges their emotional journey, and makes them the hero of their story? All right, let's see what happens. You ready?
Pull the lever. Here we go. No whammies.
No whammies. All right. And I don't know if you've noticed this, John, but while it goes through these analysis, it citing its sources, and it's often citing the ICP that I gave it as its source of data. So actually, while it's putting that together, let me go back so you can see, so the question I said is, what emotions are they going to go through? And it listed the emotions, and it said sources, the ideal customer profile. And I think that that's a really nice touch that Google Gemini has included, because then oh, this is the data that I gave it. It's not just, randomly pulling from something that doesn't exist. Like the systems are still going to hallucinate, but when you provide the information, the likelihood of it hallucinating goes down. It's still going to happen, and that's why you need the human intervention, but it goes down quite a bit. So let's see. The so what of this narrative is to empower the ICP to become the heroes of their own data-driven success stories. The data you provided reveals a landscape where many marketers are grappling with fragmented data, struggling to measure ROI, and facing challenges in delivering personalized customer experiences. That's a big sentence. The emotional journey for these marketers is one of frustration, anxiety, dissatisfaction, and pressure. I mean, that sounds pretty on the nose so far.
On the mark there, yeah.
The data story you can tell your ICP is one of transformation and triumph. I don't know. The visuals are already coming together in my head. I don't know. It's going to be, John, I think you're going to be riding a tiger or something. It's about shifting the narrative from one of struggle to one of empowerment, from uncertainty to clarity, and from missed opportunities to measurable success. Here's how you can weave this story. And now it's going to go through the hero's journey, the ordinary world, the call to adventure, challenges and trials. And so you can see it's putting together that narrative of what a hero. So you could take this narrative and actually apply it to any kind of, because it is the outline of a hero's journey. So it goes through all of those pieces. You have key messages and data points. And so this is where you can start to bring in that data-driven narrative, because you've given the large language model the customer's actual data. So it's not all just fluff of, if you just do more, then you'll make more money. So, oh, that's brilliant. Like, no, you can actually show the data to show what they are actually working with. So you have unlock the power of your data, measure what matters, personalize at scale, align marketing with business goals, become the hero of your own data story. Again, it's sort of pulling in that narrative of the hero. And then you have the actual supporting evidence, showcasing, you have your case studies and testimonials, data visualizations, thought leadership, and content. And it says, so by weaving all of these things together, you can create a compelling data story. And so far, I would say that's pretty good. So what this does is it gives us the structure. So let's say we're going to take this and putting it together as like a PowerPoint presentation. This is our outline. This is our structure of how we deliver that information. Now, I want to take it a step further and say, this is great. Can you offer specific solutions based on the data provided? What is the what am I trying to basically what I want to do is, so I gave it a bunch of data points. And so this is a great outline, but it doesn't actually tell me anything about the data points that provided. So I want to bring those back into the narrative. What is the analysis that we can provide based on what we know of the client's marketing data so far? I know this could break it. This could be the end of the show. We're going to find out. Because we could have done all of this without their data, but it wouldn't have been nearly as impactful. But then you need to remind the large language model to bring that data back in. And so that's the step that we're at. So we can see specifically, it says, let's delve into the data provided and extract specific solutions and actionable insights that resonate with the ICP's pain points and the Trust Insights value proposition. So it says addressing data fragmentation. So the lack of ad spend and revenue data across key events suggests that the client may be struggling to track and integrate data from various marketing channels. The solution, and then it goes into our specific solution. The impact by overcoming data fragmentation. So it sort of speaks to those risks of like, if you don't do this thing, this is what's going to happen. And that's actually the next step I'm going to take. And so you have then enhancing measurement and attribution, problem, the absence of ad spend. And by the way, this is our data. So I'm fully aware that we are not spending any ad dollars at this moment. See, improving customer experience through personalization. The high unsubscribe rate in the email campaign data hints at a potential lack of personalization and targeted messaging. That one cuts deep, but certainly something that we can fix. And then aligning marketing with business goals, absence of paid advertising again. So the language model was able to read the data and now pull it back in. So I'm going to say, great. Can you associate the risks outlined earlier with this analysis? What want to see is what the risk to not taking these actions would be. And so basically, now that you have all of the information, you can start to pull it together. And so once I have this, the next step is I'm going to say, great, can you re-outline the narrative and include this analysis? And it gives you really that full picture of what it is you need to deliver. So certainly, let's connect the risks we identified earlier with the specific analysis of the client's marketing data, highlighting the potential consequences of inaction. And this is where you start to get into that empathy and understanding is we really understand, and we want to make sure you also understand what happens when these things don't get done. And so it's, really making sure that we're not just saying, here's the solution, good luck. We're really digging into the why. So you have the first one, risk. It gives you the analysis, risk of inaction, missed opportunities, inefficient marketing spend, delayed delayed decision making. That's easy for me to say. Whew. And so you can see these are all pretty reflective of the pain points. And so now it's all coming together into one really well-woven story. And so you have the risk of inaccurate measurement, the risk of fragmented customer experiences, the risk of misaligned marketing. It's like, all right, okay, now we are going to pull the whole narrative together. Can you please outline the narrative from earlier that walks through the hero's journey and weave in the risk and data analysis to make a complete story. All right. So theoretically, if this works, we'll get a retelling of that hero's journey outline, but also including more of the data in that outline. And then that basically, that's what you take, you put it together in your slide deck, you add in your visuals, and then that's your story. That's what you tell to your client. So let's see. The data-driven marketer's journey from overwhelm to empowerment, the ordinary world, the marketing struggle. I wish I could do voices, but I can't. But I feel like this is where like that would really help.
The movie trailer.
But you know, it's interesting. It's actually starting to tell that story as if it's a true narrative. So in the realm of modern marketing, data reigns supreme. Yet for many marketers, this abundance of information is more of a burden than a boon. The landscape is littered with fragmented data sources, siloed channels, and elusive insights. The hero of our story, the data-driven marketer, finds themselves navigating this treacherous terrain, grappling with the following challenges. And so it sets up the story of this is what we're talking about. These are the risks. These are the pain points. So you have data fragmentation, which again, we've talked about numerous times in this episode, measurement maze, personalization paradox, and strategic disconnect. Actually, what I really like is it's really doubling down on this hero's journey theme. But it's kind of catchy. It's kind of like, okay, that's something different. And the call to action, the call to adventure, trust insights as the guide. Notice we are still not the heroes. We're just here to help. You, the customer, are the hero. So amidst the struggle, a guiding light emerges. I need sound effects. Trust Insights. With expertise in data integration, measurement, and strategy, Trust Insights offers a path to overcome these challenges and achieve data-driven success. So you have the challenges and trials, embarking on a data-driven journey, the transformation from struggle to success, the return, the hero's triumph, the call to action, become the hero of your own data story. I might actually put this on our website. This is actually kind of cool.
Yeah, become the hero of your data story. That is a good tagline.
Yeah. I know. What do you think so far? Are we accomplishing the data storytelling ask, or is it just kind of getting? Are we going too far off
Well,
track?
it's good. Yeah, but you can definitely see there's a Joseph Campbell bias, right? The hero's journey is just like totally taking over everything. And it's inviting because like we're not going to go into it, but if we had time, there are ways that we would reel this back, right? You would be able to question and clarify and drive it back on. But I think the thing with this is it does, the ugly first draft is done. Like you can basically take this and, like you said, frame your PowerPoint deck and you've got it built, you've got it ready to go. And the key is that it's in the language of the ICP, right? It's not written in how we think about these products and look at it from the service provider's perspective. It's how the customer is living through it and going with it. So yeah, no, I think this is great. This is the kind of thing, because now you just cut and paste this and you can kind of get down to work with the ugliest, most grunt work part of it done.
So number one, I think I am going to include some of this information on our website. It's actually kind of good. And then I'm saying, great, can you outline this narrative with the assumption that we need to put all of this information into a slide deck? And so ideally it would be like, okay, slide 1, this, slide 2, this, because you can ask for those directions and it should give it to you. And so here we go. Slide 1, title slide, slide 2. And it actually gives you the bullet points, slide 3, and so on and so forth. And so now I've taken all of our ICP's data. I've taken all of their marketing data. I've taken, we've gone through, John, you've gone through the questions of what is the story we're telling? What are the risks? And now the language model is outlining a slide deck for us based on all of this information. So what we would do, to your point, is we would just copy and paste it in make sure it makes sense. And like, here you go. And we did this so this is 50 minutes, but a lot of it was giving the explanation. These are things that you can do over and over again. And, it's funny because people are like, oh, I use generative AI. It's sort of like cheating. All we did, like, it was still our data. We still had to do the legwork. All it did was expedite how you get from I have a lot of data to what's the story I need to tell my client.
Yeah, and then the big thing though is, it's correctly trained, right? It was trained on the ICP, it was trained on our marketing campaign data. You've got a bunch of stuff that keeps it on the rails and, makes it effective, because otherwise you're just kind of churning the crank on whatever's out there on the internet, which isn't the same thing.
So what do you think? I'm tired after the hero's journey.
Yeah, this is it. No, we've reached the finish line. I think, we've got the story we want to tell, and we would love to hear if people have any other comments on that or want to play more with any of this stuff, because we've had a lot of success with clients who take the ICP and, start changing the way they're doing business. And again, it can take a lot of the pain out of this process. So it's worth doing.
Yeah. So if you want to learn more about, getting your own version of an ICP or some sort of data storytelling narrative like this based on your ICP, you can give us a shout, trustinsights.ai/contact, or you can join our free Slack group, Analytics for Marketers. Every day we're asking questions, we're helping people, just having general discussion. It's free to sign up. And so I think for this week, John, I think we have concluded our journey.
Our hero's journey is complete. It's safe to go grab a iced cold beverage.
Oh, sounds good. Till next week, John.
Thanks for watching today. Be sure to subscribe to our show wherever you're watching it. For more resources and to learn more, check out the Trust Insights podcast at trustinsights.ai/TI podcast and a weekly email newsletter at trustinsights.ai/newsletter. Got questions about what you saw in today's episode? Join our free Analytics for Marketers Slack group at trustinsights.ai/analytics for marketers. See you next time.